The call came on a bright Tuesday afternoon, just as the sun spilled through the cracked blinds of a small rental house and lit up the dust floating in the air like tiny sparks. Arav Malik almost didn't answer it. His phone buzzed on the kitchen counter beside an unpaid electricity bill and a half-made sandwich, and for a moment he thought it was another reminder from the bank or the school. But something about the unfamiliar number made his chest tighten. When he picked up, that single decision quietly set his entire life on a new path he never saw coming. Arav was 36, a single father with tired eyes and shoulders that always seemed a little slumped, as if the weight of responsibility had physically bent him forward. His wife had died 3 years earlier after a sudden illness, leaving him alone with their 6-year-old son, Rayan. Since then, Arav's life had become a careful balancing act of early mornings, packed lunches, school runs, and long shifts at a local hardware store. He didn't complain out loud, but loneliness followed him everywhere, sitting beside him at the dinner table and lying awake with him at night when the house felt too quiet. Before the story goes any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that can happen when strangers cross paths, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Touch. Your support helps keep stories like this alive. The stranger on the phone spoke calmly, almost gently, saying she had found his number through a community contact list. She said her name was Mira Solanki, and that she needed to talk to him about something important related to his house. Arav's first reaction was panic. His mind jumped straight to rent issues, complaints, or some legal trouble he couldn't afford. He glanced around the modest living room with its worn sofa, mismatched cushions, and his son's crayons scattered on the floor, wondering what else life planned to take from him. After the call ended, Arav stood still for a long time, the phone heavy in his hand. The woman hadn't explained much, only that she lived next door and wanted to meet that same afternoon. Arav barely knew his neighbors. The mansion beside his small house had always felt like a different world, hidden behind tall gates and neatly trimmed hedges. He had seen gardeners there in the mornings and expensive cars come and go, but he had never imagined someone from that house would ever call him. That afternoon, as the sun leaned westward and painted everything in warm gold, Arav walked out onto his tiny front porch. The contrast between his place and the mansion next door was impossible to ignore. His paint was peeling, the steps creaked, and the yard was patchy with dry grass. Next door, the driveway gleamed, fountains sparkled in daylight, and the air itself seemed calmer. When the gate opened and a woman stepped out, Arav felt his breath catch. Mira Solanki was not what he expected. She looked to be in her early 40s, dressed simply despite the obvious wealth around her. There was a quiet confidence in the way she moved, but also something softer, almost hesitant in her eyes. In the bright afternoon light, she studied Arav's face with curiosity and concern rather than judgment. Mira explained that she had recently moved back after years abroad and had been learning about the neighborhood. While reviewing property boundaries and old records, she discovered an issue with the land between their houses. Part of Arav's backyard technically belonged to her estate due to an old documentation error. Legally, she could have demanded changes or even removal of part of his shed. Arav felt the ground shift beneath him as she spoke. That small backyard was where Ryan played, where Arav grew a few vegetables to save money, where they spent their evenings under the open sky. But then Mira surprised him. She said she didn't want to take anything away. Instead, she wanted to offer something back. She had noticed Arav and his son over the past few weeks, seen how Arav rushed home every afternoon, how he helped Rayan with homework under the tree, how he fixed broken things himself rather than asking for help. She said it reminded her of someone she once loved and lost. Life had not been gentle with Mira either. Years earlier, she had lost her husband and unborn child in an accident, and since then, the mansion had felt more like a hollow shell than a home. Success and wealth had followed her, but warmth had not. Watching a father and son next door living with so little yet sharing so much had stirred something in her she thought was long gone. Over the following weeks, small changes began. Mira arranged for the property issue to be resolved in Arav's favor, officially gifting him the disputed land. She also offered to help in ways that felt less like charity and more like partnership. She connected Arav with a friend who ran a small tool supply business, giving him better hours and better pay. She invited Rayan to use her vast garden during the day, where the boy ran freely under the sun, his laughter echoing across the lawns. Arav struggled with pride. Accepting help didn't come easily. There were nights he lay awake wondering if he was failing as a father by needing someone else. But every morning, when he saw Rayan happier, more relaxed, and full of stories about the butterflies and fountains next door, Arav knew that sometimes strength meant accepting kindness. Day by day, trust grew between them. Mira and Arav began talking more, often in the afternoons when the light softened and shadows stretched across the ground. They shared stories of loss, of dreams that had quietly faded, and of the strange ways life reshapes people without asking permission. There was no rush, no grand declarations, just a slow rebuilding of something human and real. The biggest challenge came when Arav was offered a chance to move to another city for a higher-paying job. It was everything he had prayed for financially, but it would mean uprooting Rayan from his school and leaving behind the fragile community they had found. Arav stood in his backyard one afternoon, watching his son play in the sunlight, and felt torn in two directions. Mira didn't push him either way. She simply listened. She reminded him that security wasn't just about money, but about emotional safety and belonging. Arav realized that for the first time since his wife's death, he wasn't facing a decision alone. In the end, Arav chose to stay. With Mira's encouragement, he invested in a small repair service of his own, using his skills and connections. It was risky, but it allowed him to be present for his son and build something meaningful. The days were still long, but they felt lighter. The sun seemed warmer. The future no longer felt like a dark tunnel, but an open road. As months passed, the two houses no longer felt like separate worlds. Laughter drifted between them in the daytime. Meals were shared. Rayan found in Mira a gentle guiding presence, and Mira found in them a sense of family she thought she had lost forever. If this story is touching something deep inside you, if it reminds you that compassion can change lives in the most unexpected ways, please take a moment to like, share, and engage with this video. Your support helps spread these stories of hope to others who may need them today. Just before the ending, we have a special request for you. Please comment the word kindness below if you believe that one small act of humanity can rewrite someone's destiny. On a clear, sunlit morning a year later, Arav stood outside his house, now freshly painted, with Rayan beside him. Next door, Mira stepped into the light, smiling as the day unfolded around them. The mansion no longer felt distant or intimidating. It felt like part of a shared life, woven together by loss, courage, and unexpected grace. Arav thought back to that phone call, to the fear he felt when he answered an unknown number. He realized how close he had been to missing everything that followed. Sometimes the most life-changing moments arrive quietly, disguised as inconvenience or uncertainty, and sometimes the stranger on the other end of the line isn't there to take something from you, but to give you a future you never believed was possible.